Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Happy Chinese New Year! 新年快乐! 恭喜发财! I am Winking Wang, MIT Class of 84, President of the MIT Chinese Alumni Group. Today's topic is bringing clean energy and water to all. We are pleased to present Jodie Wu, who is zooming in from Rwanda, Africa. Jodie is MIT Class of 2009 with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Jodie was an MIT D-Lab Fellow and a TEDGlobal Fellow. She won the Audience Choice Award of the MIT 100K Business Plan Competition and the C3E International Award. C3E is the U.S. Clean Energy Education and Empowerment Initiative that is implemented by the U.S. Department of Energy, MIT, Stanford University, and the Texas A&M Energy Institute. Jodie is the Chief Executive Officer of Off-Grid Box, Rwanda, Africa. She has spent more than 10 years working in Africa on renewable energy. She was an MIT Public Service Center Fellow when she founded Global Cycle Solutions in Tanzania that offered bicycle-powered technology. She sold her company 7 years later and then expanded Greenlight Planet to over 30 branches in Tanzania before taking on the role of VP of New Products and Service Company in Kenya. She then joined Off-Grid Box in Rwanda as a COO and was promoted to CEO 1.5 years later. Off-Grid Box brings affordable, clean water and renewable energy to everybody, anyway. Anybody, anywhere. Q&A will follow Jodie's presentation. You may post your questions in the Q&A box now. You can also upvote the questions that you like. And here is Jodie Wu.
Thank you so much, Winking. You gave an amazing introduction. So I will go into sharing my screen so you at least have my profile. Oh, I'm actually sharing the wrong thing. Let me do a new share here. Great. Yes, so as Winking said, my name is Jodie Wu. This is not showing the right slide. I'm very sorry, team. There we go. Perfect. Okay, now we're at the beginning. So as Winking said, my name is Jodie Wu, and I'm really excited to be here today because I have a strong connection to MIT, as that is where my journey started. But today is really not about me. It's really about you and sort of how we as alumni, I think there's a lot of alumni also on the call, can be supportive as a network, sort of supportive of each other as a network, as well as supportive of current undergrads. So I'd ask the team who's with us if we could open the chat box for everyone for a few moments to basically just find out who's in the room and to just share a little bit about what you hope to learn from this session or why you came. So maybe we'll give just a minute or two to let this happen. I might have to stop sharing. Let me go here. All right. Any bold souls to be the first one to chat? Oh, fantastic. We've got some lifelong learners here. Really great. Oh, it's still coming in. Wow. So also, I hope people will continue to write in. I think the chat box will probably turn off in the next few minutes, but I'm happy to continue on the presentation so we don't lose time. But it's really exciting to see what people have already written, and this will turn off, and then you can submit questions in the Q&A input. So a little bit about me. So Winking already pretty much gave the introduction, my whole bio, but I thought I would give you a little bit more color to all of it. So I'm course 209, mechanical engineering. I played on the MIT women's soccer team. I'm here on the far left, number 20. I was involved in the UPOP career program. I was in course 2. So of course we did the famous 2009 class. And in this picture was our dotted brailer that actually ended up getting patented and then further developed. So there's a lot more that I did at MIT than what I did post MIT. So yeah, so I think my journey into international development actually began in my sophomore year when I did my first corporate job. And so, oops, it skipped ahead. And where I was in a cubicle and I was like, I really did not study engineering to be just another engineer, double checking the work of someone else. So I was pretty frustrated. I thought I didn't want to be an engineer anymore. And I was thinking of a career change and wondering, what can I do? Lucky for me, I found MIT D-Lab, which was founded by Amy Smith. At that time, MIT D-Lab was a very small program. It had basically just started. It was its second year. It was only 3 classes. It was 3 classes when I came to MIT, and by the time I left, it was 8 classes. So I think now it's 20 classes. So it's really changed throughout the time. But D-Lab was really about how do you apply your engineering skills in the developing world. And so the 3 flagship classes was D-Lab Development, where you learn about the failures of technology in developing countries, D-Lab Design, where you actually design technologies to address these issues, and then Development Ventures and Dissemination. So those are actually 2 separate classes that were really around how do you get technology out to the field. So that's when, yeah, it's like what I learned there is if you want to make a product change the world, you need to co-create and collaborate with the local community. So as a part of my Public Service Center fellowship, I actually ended up going to Tanzania. That was actually after I'd gone so first I went to Tanzania as a D-Lab student in 2008. And so you can see these years at this bottom. So in 2008, I went to first as a student in January, then I went back as a fellow, and all about it was, and as a fellow, I was actually implementing my D-Lab design project, which was addressing this issue, where in Africa, one of the main staple in East Africa, the main staple food is actually corn. And this corn is usually gotten by doing it by hand, removing kernels by hand or hitting it with a stick. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I went on to start a company in 2009. I had won the MIT 100K competition. And so that meant I got to go open an office. So you can see it's not much, hand painted on the wall. And actually in the picture was actually another D-Lab student, MIT alum, year before me, MIT 08 physics, who left Peace Corps to come work with me for a few years. So here I was in Africa, starting to develop a product that I really wanted to scale. It was something that I did in the university, and I was like, if I don't take this to market, nobody will. So learned to do local manufacturing here. This is one of the nicer workshops. They would rebuild engines, etc. And also working in the community. So taking this product out to different places and going out to sell it. But as every business does, you end up pivoting and people ask for other things. So I was really lucky to be connected to someone who in the top left, you'll see is Bernard Kiwia, who was an inventor who had come to MIT as part of a special program called the International Development Design Summit, where they brought people of all skill sets from around the world for 5 weeks to design products that could solve problems. So when I went to Tanzania, I had the joy of working with him. And as I was working with these bicycle shellers, people were like, we want a bicycle phone charger. So we started making bicycle phone chargers. We started developing all kinds of different products. So at that time, we were still in, yeah, I'm feeling old now, but 12 years ago, you were doing great if you had this Nokia phone with the flashlight on top. Battery lasted for a week, and this we could charge from our bicycle. So through the MIT networks, I got to, there's usually a lot of conferences. So there's this National Collegiate Inventors and Innovators Alliance where I got to meet with a lot of different startups. One of those startups was actually called Greenlight Planet. And so this is actually their founder. They had started in 2008, but they had designed a solar light. And so at that time, it was actually a very new concept. Solar was still was actually still very expensive at that time. And this was a way to bring light in a much more affordable way. So I was actually attending a webinar just like you are right now, where he was the speaker. And I was the one who was awarded this light at the end of the conference to take back to Tanzania. So, this company is now all around the world. I ended up traveling, bringing this product all the way back to Tanzania. So as you can see in this map, Tanzania is in Eastern Africa. So I went from Boston to Eastern Africa. And what I found is Bernard came and told me, this is the best solar lantern I've ever used. Where do I get another one? So before I knew it, I started selling this product again and again and again. And this became my primary business of selling solar lights in villages. So this is one of the products, Sun King Pro. It was one of the first solar lights that provided both lighting and phone charging. And this was not first solar light, but the first solar light from Greenlight Planet. And so this pivot from here I am developing bicycle technology to here I am doing this led to a pivot in my company. First, it was, how do I develop better technology in the developing world context? But now it was more about, how do we get products out there? Because products without reach are products without impact. And so just as why I even left to go to Tanzania, it was because if I was just going to keep doing this as a class project at MIT, and then I go work for one of the big consulting firms, I knew this technology would never have an impact. And more or less, everything I worked on at MIT would have been just a student research project. So many years later, I continued to hone my business model. We started developing and working with these micro entrepreneurs who would bring our products to villages. And so we would have our solar supplier here where we're warehousing different small technologies. We were doing inventory financing where we had branch offices around the country. And then we were getting these deep into the village, like even where there were no cars. So our goal was to provide rural villagers with access to transformative technologies through last mile distribution. So this is just, some of the examples of the stories we were having is we had agents earning over $1,000 just from selling lights, selling over 2,000 products. So there are lots of opportunities and we got a lot of recognition. So we also, in addition to what Wing King had mentioned, I was Forbes 30 under 30, I was a TED Fellow, Echoing Green Fellow. And so all of these different fellowships really helped me survive and really continue to work over the next 12 years to do what I do. So I ended up expanding our product portfolio. So we also started selling clean cook stoves as well. And then the competition started to get stiff. All these solar companies were coming in and it's like, how do we continue to compete in this market? So in 2016, I sold my business to Greenlight Planet. And these are the 30 shops that Wing King had mentioned is like we opened shops and branches all around the country. So Solar Bora Bei Nafuu means quality solar, affordable price. And so this was all across Tanzania. And that brings me to where I am today. So working for a big corporate, actually, I guess Greenlight wasn't that corporate because we're only 1,000 staff across 6 countries. But I felt as the VP of new products, I realized I didn't have the patience to wait the 3 or 4 years that it takes for a technology to go to market. So I started working with Off-Grid Box, where on a consultancy project to bring 12 of these boxes to 10 villages in Tanzania. So it was all about clean water, clean energy anywhere in the world. And what I thought was so cool about this was here I was able to bring tech and finally address a problem that's even bigger than electricity. You've probably never thought about it, but when I was living in Tanzania, there would be times when I would have no power or no water. And so actually, I would prefer to have no power than to have no water, because when you have no water, you can't shower. When you have no water, you don't have anything to drink. And my friend Daniel, who I said worked in Peace Corps, in his village, it would be like, I have this bucket of water left. Should I wash the dishes that haven't been washed in 2 days, or should I take a shower? So having to deal with that situation, this is an exciting way to bring water to different communities. So we at Off-Grid Box, I'm based in Kigali, but we've deployed 84 boxes in 15 countries around the world. It's really about water, energy, and impact. So, how do we bring services at an affordable rate? So selling water as a water kiosk, providing power banks and lighting kits, charging phones, being a charging hub. And how do we turn this at solar? It's almost like I wouldn't even call it a grid, but this 3.7 kilowatt system into a community hub. So we actually hire women at each of these locations, and we've powered, not only are we providing these services in the community, but we also are powering schools, clinics, and different, what we call productive uses. So whether that's a pump for irrigation, and power. So when you enter this world of working in Africa, one of the things that you'll become or actually working in any developing country, not just Africa, you'll become familiar with these sustainable development goals, where it's about, I think in the beginning they were called Millennium Development Goals, right? And so they keep on evolving, but we address all these different issues of gender equality, clean water, affordable and clean energy, climate action. And so these are the different roles that we play in all of it. So I think for those, since I was talking to MIT people, I was like, I should share a little bit more of the technical stuff that we do, in case that might be exciting. But so here you can see we're powering, you don't see our box in the photo, but this is an example of a welding workshop where we're powering it. You can see here we have packaged drinking water. We're able to see the internet speed at the off-grid box, and you can see a little bit of the interior of the off-grid box and one of our box keepers named Joyce. And now when we deploy boxes, a little bit about how we expand is it involves site selection. So using GIS to map, where's the water source, where are we going to put the box? It involves engineering design in terms of, okay, how do we want the boxes to connect to a tank? And are we going to separate the solar pump or embed it within the box? So we have to do those different kinds of analysis. We also prep the land. So our off-grid box can actually be put anywhere on the ground, rapid deployment, but many places look at it as a permanent tech that they can continue to have. So we just tell them build a 4 meter by 4 meter square foundation, and we'll put our box on top of it. So our deployments look very much like this. Boxes are picked up, put on a crane truck, and then they're sent to field. So this is actually the picture of my office. So it's nothing too fancy, still very much in a startup context. And then we go to the field. And this is another photo actually, and we are training a team from Somalia. So we actually have technical teams come in from around the world that we train in order for them to deploy our boxes in their countries. So yeah, so that's our off-grid box. And you can now ask all the questions you want, but this is my contact information. I know it looks like an I, but it's jzwu@alum.mit.edu. So I think I'll hand over the floor to Wing King. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jodie, for the exciting presentation. So we have questions here.
Okay,
the
perfect.
first one is, how are boxes maintained?
Yeah, perfect. So for our boxes, so as you saw, we talked about employing women. So all of our boxes, we typically hire a woman who we call a box keeper who actually maintains it for us. So the boxes, we sell different services. So we might be charging a phone for 10 cents per charge. We might be selling water at 5 cents per liter. And that pays for the box keeper, as well as all the other income goes to contribute to maintenance and goes back to whatever their partner wanted. So in some cases, the money goes to the district. In other cases, it's just income for the NGO. So it all just depends. In Rwanda, we actually run it as a business. So all those profits go to recuperate the cost of the box.
Great, thank you. So when did you decide to take the leap into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I guess I would mark it to one pivotal moment was when we won the 100K business plan. So I'd actually gotten a full ride to go to Berkeley. So for MIT alumni who went to Berkeley, I somehow still somewhat regret not going, but I'd gotten a full ride to go to Berkeley. And I was at this point of, do I go there or do I start this company? We just got $30,000 from this Audience Choice Award. Which one do we do? And sort of what really got me to take the leap is I talked to my mentor who was a professor at MIT, Sanjay Sarma, for those of you who are still there, and I think he's still there. He had the same thesis advisor that I would have if I went to Berkeley. I was like, what should I do? I don't know. I just won this competition. And he was like, what do your parents do? And I was like, well, I mean, he's like, were they doctors? Were they lawyers? And I was like, no, they ran a restaurant. I mean, my mom had a computer science degree and my dad an economics degree, but by factors of immigration, they were running a restaurant. So he was like, perfect. It's in your blood. You're an entrepreneur. And that's when I realized I actually have been an entrepreneur all my life. My aunt had run a restaurant, done real estate. My uncle had an aircraft lighting company. And I realized, he's like, you know, that there's no glory in starting a company. It's actually a lot of hard work and grit to make a business succeed. So he's like, I think you should go for it. And so I did.
Wow, thank you. Another question, what technology do you use to make the water?
Yeah, so for us, we don't really make the water, but we purify the water. So in terms of different deployments that we do, sometimes we're connecting to existing water taps that give questionable water. So when you have tap come out of the water, you either there's turbidity, so there's cloudiness in the water, or you might have things floating in it. So we help purify that. But also we've done pumping from lakes, where on islands where they used to bring water from the mainland, like packaged drinking water from the mainland, now they can just take it straight from the lake. And so we also pump from boreholes, and we also have desalination. So whatever water source is really, we don't make water, but we purify all types of water sources.
Great. Someone is not clear on what the box actually does. And it looks like it produces solar energy. Is that stored with batteries? Does it produce, for example, pump and process, or just store water?
Looks like I left out a key slide that gives you all the technical specifications. So, so the box is actually a 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter storage container. And on top are solar panels. Inside these solar panels then go through a charge controller that then go to the batteries. And so the batteries for the solar is 3.7 kilowatt peak. Sorry, I think I'm allowed to get technical here, right, Winking? 3.7 kilowatt peak, it goes through there, and then we provide up to 15 kilowatt hours of storage. Some have been designed to be only for daytime use, so we put just 5 kilowatt hours of storage, just so you can get them through cloudy days. But then from there, it goes to an inverter, and so we're providing AC power. So single phase, depending on the country. So in Africa, we're doing 220 volts, where we can power up, continuously power up to devices for 1.5 kilowatts, but of course it can peak up to 5 kilowatts with our 3 kV inverter. On the other side, that's powering a water purification system in which there's a pump, and so that pump pumps so the water so that the water can either come in from a tank, it's pumped from another water source from the power that we are providing, and it goes into the storage tank. And then from this storage tank, we have another pump that basically pushes it through through filters, through 4 stages of filters, and then does UV purification. But that's just one of the many different technologies. That's the standard one that we have, but we also do reverse osmosis. We also do ultrafiltration. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question and didn't lose too many people.
Yes, I think that also answers another question, that is, how do you purify the water? So you kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Thank you.
So the next question is, the questions are coming in real fast. Any box deployments in South or Southeast Asia? Future plans?
So I would definitely love to be, one of our first boxes that we deployed by boat actually went to the Philippines for disaster. The box was actually designed for disaster relief situations, whereby when we deploy the boxes, actually, it's like you're opening a gift. You open the gift and in 3 hours it's fully assembled. So so actually it was put on a boat, taken to the Philippines, and installed. So there are a few there, but primarily a majority of our boxes have been in East Africa. And that's just because, I think it's just because that's people who see our box want our box. And so one of our biggest challenges, unless someone has seen our box in real life, it's hard to make the investment for something that costs more than $20,000. Yeah.
Yeah. How much of the box contents can be locally sourced? And what does a box fully equipped cost? I think you just mentioned the cost.
Yeah. So killed another bird with 1 stone. But in terms of locally done, so actually all of our maintenance is locally done with technicians. So we try to use brands in which they can get it on their local market already. So solar panels are pretty standard, but like, for instance, the brand of Victron is very popular in Africa. Like, we know there's other better brands, but Victron is readily available. So we tend to install that there and pre-equip it, but the spares and the maintenance can be gotten there. The other aspect is with a lot of the projects that we do, we provide the spares with the units. So the locally available parts are, I guess you can say everything is locally available. The challenge is usually just the quality. And so when our product leaves Europe, it's actually CE certified, European standards, everything. But when that locally available aspect comes in, it's no longer certified.
Yeah. So are solar panels being manufactured in Africa? I guess that's a follow-up question. If not, have you considered building one?
Yeah, so I think for us, we haven't thought about building solar panels. I think a lot of it, so our box actually has over 400 components. And so solar panels are just one of the many components. So even if we wanted to manufacture every single component, it would be difficult. But I would, in terms of local assembly and local manufacturing, it's something that we're looking into. So like, for instance, in Kenya, we already know there's a solar plant there. But yeah, I think the example I'd like to put is sort of the magic that we do is putting together all the different technologies. So like when you look at a supplier of bicycles, there's no one who manufactures the bicycle. They source the tires from the tubes from somewhere, the frames from somewhere. So that's exactly what we do, is we're constantly upgrading the components that are the most cutting edge at that time.
Thank you. Where does the funding come from to pay for the boxes?
Yeah, so they've come from a lot of different sources. So a lot of the ones that we've sold across Europe and the US, those are usually wealthy individuals who have purchased it for their homestead and for the countryside home. But the ones that we've sold in Africa have been grant funded. So there's a lot of grant funding going into energy. And so, but it's also weird to say grant funded in the sense of they're actually, like for instance, in Tanzania, the 12 boxes that we deployed in 10 villages was actually, we were a technology supplier for a UNDP project. So they were implementing these for the villages. So they were actually our customer. They weren't really funding us to do our work. We sold them the boxes. So those are typical. And then we've also had NGOs who donate the box and they do it. But I think, yes, for when I get that question, I think it's sometimes like, oh, it's too expensive. I think the second question I read into is like, yes, it's a very expensive technology. And it's something that we know. And actually, we're actually working on a brand new tech that's a tenth of the size, a tenth of the cost. That doesn't have to serve 400 families. It can serve 40 families. So that is something that we really believe will be a product that entrepreneurs can afford and doesn't have to be a community level box. So like, for instance, like we just deployed, our last box we just deployed was in a refugee camp, and that refugee camp has 70,000 people. Our box is only built to serve 2,000 people. So we'll also need to deploy multiple boxes in that area. So every area is a different case for us.
So a related question is, would you speak a bit more about your decision to make your organization nonprofit versus social enterprise?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of social enterprises are actually not making profit, so they should probably be called a nonprofit. But nonprofit's actually just tax status. So it means that when you are making profit, you're not supposed to make profit. So at the end of the year, you basically have to use all your budget, and that if you make more money, it doesn't belong to any shareholders. So it's more of a tax structure. In terms of social enterprise, in terms of if we had the option to do one or the other, is for social enterprise, I think it's the key. In my age, I think the conversation might be changing, but back in 2000, I think a lot of nonprofits were really being criticized for not doing something that's sustainable. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the concept of social enterprise started to emerge, of like, we don't need to be just giving away stuff that no one wants. We could actually be selling stuff to people who really value this technology. And so that's what's been happening, is when you're able to align that aspect of, like, so when you say nonprofit, people expect you to give it to them. But when you're an enterprise, you're able to know that your customer actually wants your product, and you're able to figure out how to get that to align. And that social part has always been a tricky aspect, because it's almost like we could be making more profit in other markets, but we're socially minded. So we're still tackling the most difficult areas, even though it's not as profitable.
Right. So back to the technical questions. Batteries have limited life, and what is the replacement and maintenance plan? Lithium-ion batteries, systems, or what?
Yes. So it's funny because we actually just did a technical test where we're actually checking how long battery lasts. Yeah, in terms of our batteries, we expect them to last 5 years. And then in terms of replacement, we expect the people who are working at the boxes to have, we actually, like, for instance, with the health clinics, we worked with them to design savings accounts so that 5 years from now, they would be able to buy a whole new set of batteries without having to rely on donations or being stuck, like a lot of as what frequently happens in other places. And at those, because we care about that sustainability part, we could have just given these boxes to the clinics, but our funders really wanted us to think about, how do we get it to sustain it? So all the excess energy from those boxes that were for the health centers, we use it to run businesses. So I mentioned, like, the welders who are using that, they're actually paying to use the welding machine from the box. People who want water, they're actually purchasing the water. And so that money goes to cover that expense. Yeah.
Great. And what is the daily output of a box? Kilowatt.
So in terms of kilowatt hours, yeah, so it can do up to 10 kilowatt hours. And then, yeah, I think we have a double box or double roof box. And so that also works as well. You can also fix the lighting. Sorry, one of my other external lights just went off.
That's okay. And the follow-up question is, what is the cost per kilowatt hour and liter of water?
Yeah, so typically, in terms of, so there's two ways to answer the kilowatt hour question. Usually we don't answer that question because it doesn't really work for us in terms of kilowatt hours. Might say it's battery storage, but there's the kilowatt hours that are actually produced from the panels over the day. So price per kilowatt hour could be like the cost of the box per kilowatt hour. But in terms of like, if we want it to make sense in terms of the pay for itself over 10 years, we're looking at, okay, can they get to $2 per kilowatt hour, which is actually quite easy, because just from phone charging alone, if you charge 10 cents per phone charge, that actually equates to over $10 per kilowatt hour of energy. And that's how much people are already paying. So that's why we provide these different services, because there's no way to compete for the cost of power, but it is possible to compete with the cost of other solar systems, as well as to compete with the diesel generator, which is one of the most common issues of the health clinics. Is a lot of them have diesel generators, but no one can afford to run them because they're very oversized. I think there was a second part of the question that I did not answer. Could you repeat that question, or I can find it as well?
Yeah, I'm looking for it. Oh, I think it has been deleted.
Daily output of liters of water. Okay, yeah. So the liters of water. So in terms of pumping of water, and that always depends on how deep the well is or how deep the borehole is. But in terms of water purification, we're doing 5,000 liters a day. In terms of at 150 meters, we're doing, we can do 10,000 liters a day. So that means at 50 meters, we can do 3 times that, so 30,000 liters a day. So the number just varies if you're pumping from ground source or deep in a borehole.
Okay. What supplies are needed for ongoing operation, such as filters and other replaceable parts?
Yeah, so in terms of the ongoing operation, so the filters, definitely for all the systems, they have to be cleaned. So I think that's part one, making sure the panels are always clean so that people can continue to, so that you can still harness all the power. But so it's having that technical maintenance team is one part. The other aspects is having the battery supply. So usually the batteries are pretty straightforward. You can get the batteries locally, but it's we're using four batteries in series, so 48 volts. And then the filters are usually, there's water companies around, so they can get the filters locally. But a lot of our filters, we have a process in which we can clean them is one part. So we put a lot of different filters. So very few filters have to be replaced. And then in terms of ultrafiltration, which is the next technology, that's the backwash does a lot for that. But in all the areas, for certain, as we get more boxes and get more units, we will need to have those spares set up with distributors.
Okay. And are there use cases for developed markets? I'm not sure what the use cases mean.
I mean, I think in terms of use cases, I would say we've actually flown boxes into the Alps. So places where they're so off grid and remote that or people want to be clean. This is a great box. Actually, our CEO in Tuscany, or our former CEO, now CTO, but he's also our founder and president. He lives off of our off-grid box in Tuscany, and uses it every day. That kind of aspect. But I think there's also, I think the reality is 3.7 kilowatt peak is quite small given the consumption of the Western world of all of our electronics, our washing machines, our freezers. So it's a different scale altogether. But as an example, I didn't mention this, but we have a sister company that is actually developing all types of solar technology. They assemble our boxes, but they're doing like electric carport. And so for those who are shifting towards electric vehicles, that's one of the products that they're doing.
Now, moving on to non-technical questions, do you need to engage with the authorities at the federal or local levels? How was the experience? What are your key learnings?
Mhm. Yes, for sure, we have to engage with the different authorities. I'm also just shifting a light since I can't even see myself in the camera. Yeah, so in terms of local authorities, especially in Rwanda, they're extremely important. But like what I mentioned for the European standards, I can't speak much about it because I haven't worked in Europe, but it's like going to the right authorities. We have to do all the water lab tests. We're now looking at how do we get the different certifications. I believe it was a huge, long process for the UL certificate because we shipped a box to Hawaii as well. So, so it's quite complex, but it's also the only way. So it's kind of this pain that you have to endure. And so we also have to do this. Luckily in Eastern Africa, or actually across Africa, there's entities such as like Power Africa, where their job is to support companies to navigate this space. So in Rwanda, we have this development corporation that we have an MOU with, so that they know that we're operating within the country.
Great. So your bio mentions mentors at MIT. How did you find your mentors? And is there a way current students can learn from you as a mentor?
I shouldn't have pre-read the question. Yeah.
And you gave them your email address too.
Yeah. So my mentors, so I think I've been really fortunate with mentors. I think, how it all starts out with is someone who's you go to for advice, and then it evolves into something else. They're very much friends in a lot of ways, but like for instance, my first mentor was Simeon Dukac. I don't know if you guys know him, but he was one of the blackjack players, the famous MIT blackjack players.
Famous
he
movie.
was then, yeah, and then he was the Techstars Boston. He also ran that for a couple of years, but he became my mentors because he was looking for projects to get involved in. So I became his first investment ever into a company that was non-software related and also in Africa. And so that came with him. But the other mentors, they've come through just, I think it's almost like you're going to talk to a lot of people in your life, and then you're going to find people where you click with. And I think when you have the most valuable mentors are those that you can click with, and then it's just a matter of staying in touch with them. But I would say that I've also been extremely fortunate in terms of when I was a TEDGlobal Fellow, they had pro bono executive coaches, and executive coaches usually cost a couple $100 an hour. And so they worked really hard to find a coach that matches you. So I had an executive coach that I basically had since, I technically worked with her for the past 8 years. I used to talk with her like every month for the first 2 years, but I think now it's just like once a year of like, oh, now I'm working through this issue, etc. But I think they were really fundamental in helping me grow. And so it's really around finding someone who's interested in your work and it's helpful when they'll do it pro bono, and then you also aligning with what they're advising. So I have had coaches where it's basically like, okay, 10 sessions are done, we're done. So it's really about not forcing it.
Oh, good. Thank you. And next question, how were you received as a Chinese American in Africa?
I would, so first they call me Mzungu, so there's many layers to this. So I'm going to answer it with the many layers that come with it. I think the first thing that shocked me about going to Africa is they actually knew the difference between, are you from China? Are you from Korea? Are you from Japan? What country are you from? So that was the first thing I was surprised about, because I feel like my experience growing up in Southern United States is everyone's just Chinese. So I think that was something that I appreciated right away. But the other thing is, I think where we look at where the world is right now, right, in terms of Black Lives Matter, anti-Asian hate, I think some of you saw the previous webinars, like we're considered white. Asians have white privilege in Africa. And I think that's something that, and actually even in Rwanda, they have closer relations with China than with the US. So they actually feel more comfortable working with people who look Chinese. So I think being received as someone with white privilege. And in terms of, yeah, and I think that was probably the toughest part was more that I couldn't, because I don't speak Chinese. There's actually a lot of Chinese people from China working in Africa, usually in the construction field. And so it's really hard for me to connect to those communities because they stay very insular. And also I have very limited Mandarin. But yeah, I think there's huge networks there. And I would say if anything, especially going to Tanzania, it's in their culture. They welcome everyone. And so I had an amazing experience.
Wow, I'm so glad. So how did your life in America prepare you for your life in Africa?
Yeah, so I would say I grew up in Georgia, where the elementary school I went to, I was the only Asian, and the only other Asian was my cousin. And my sister was in the middle school, so we weren't in the same school. So we were like probably one of 3 Asian families in my town that I came from. So I think in one part, I was already prepared to be the minority. And so going to Africa as a minority is made no difference at all. I think the other thing is, I mean, since I believe there's a lot of people that are Chinese alumni in this group as well. I think the part that actually really excited me about working in Africa is like me growing up, we had to drive very far to go to the Chinese supermarket. And in the countries I'm living in Africa, there's large Chinese communities. So the Chinese supermarket is not a 1-hour drive away. It's just like right there. So I get better Chinese food. And nothing's as good as my parents, but I get better Chinese food in Africa in terms of my bok choy is there. All of that is there. So I would say that going through that experience of being a loner, and I think that's also something that you should prepare yourself as you look into entrepreneurship, is you're always going to be a loner. No matter what race you are, or whatever age you are, what you look like, what gender, you're going to be a loner when you leap into entrepreneurship. So having that growing up made it easy. It was natural. So yeah.
Great advice. So how did your parents, talking about your parents, how did they feel about this? How did you overcome any objections from them?
So my dad, let's say, I mean, when I look at the American dream of my Chinese, of my parents immigrating, I think it was actually a big disappointment for them. It's like, we immigrated to the US for a better life for my daughter, and here my daughter goes and moves to Africa. What is going on? We try to get our next generations moving up, and then my daughter moves backwards. So I mean, I think they definitely really embraced the idea of gaining experience over a few years. I think they just never expected I would be here for 12 years. And then I think ultimately it's been all about, how to make sure that I'm happy. And I think I've been very lucky that they put my happiness over their happiness. But I think I'm also Chinese culturally in terms of, my parents are now approaching 70, and it's the time is coming where I do need to go back for a few years to do my duties as the one Chinese child who's close to their parents. So I think that there's that element, but also, when I first went to Africa, the internet was not good. So having a phone call, having connection, having this video call was impossible. But in the past 5 years, it's been a completely different story. So, and looking at this world in COVID, it's like the world is small. We're all doing remote. Video call is actually the safest way to communicate right now. And so I think my parents have adjusted really well to that. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I think in the end, ultimately, it's like, Jodie, finally you have all we wanted you to do was to have your life partner, and we know you're fine and our job is done. It's like, okay, you've done that now. So now they're off my back. But I think it's something they struggle with. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet initially they and others might have asked you, why Africa?
Yeah, sure. So I think this goes back to my corporate life, my corporate internship question of why am I doing this, and wanting to do something that was more impactful. So when you go to Africa, you'll see like there's just so much opportunity and so many challenges. And I think, and even from my D-Level experience, I didn't talk about this much, but I thought I was going to solve poverty in like my 3 weeks during my IAP trip. Of course, going there, you realize poverty is such a much larger problem, and it's something that takes a lifelong commitment, because there's so many different elements at play. But one of the reasons I went there was more of, one, seeing the need, but then also I was there at the right time. I think I didn't realize that renewable energy would become the next big thing. When I went there, there was hardly any small solar lantern companies. And when I started selling solar lanterns, people are giving you almost $50. And you're talking about villages where people are making $2 a day or less. And they're thanking you when they buy the product. So it was just so rewarding to know that you're bringing so much value in everything you do. So being able to be close to customers who value what you're doing and that you're making a tremendous difference. So imagine, even my first times in Tanzania before I bought my solar light, when the power went out, I used candles. And when you use candles, I actually go to sleep. Put me in a dark room, I'm gonna go to sleep. But as soon as I had a solar light, it's like, oh, I can continue working, no problem. So it really makes a big difference. And it also makes, especially for solar lighting, it makes a huge difference for those who have a lot of domestic responsibilities, especially in a world where majority of girls don't make it to high school or don't make it through high school because they have so many domestic responsibilities at home. So they can't study, they don't get the grades. There's so many factors at play. So these little technologies make a huge difference. And when people are buying it, you know they will have a difference because they really want it.
Yeah. Yes, a big ripple effect, very impactful. Thank you. And now, another question. Have you had any opportunities to collaborate with other entrepreneurs from various countries, such as Japan?
With Japan?
Or from Japan?
Not yet, we would love to be collaborating with people from other countries. So I was actually just in Dubai last week for the Zayed Sustainability Prize, and 2 of the other water finalists. One was from Singapore and the other one was from Germany. And so like for both of us, we were like, let's figure out how to work together. The person in Singapore was doing emergency relief ultrafiltration technologies. And the other one from Germany was doing reverse osmosis, almost same business, but much bigger technology, almost 10 times the size of our technology. So in terms of collaborations, this is something that we would really love. And also, we also collaborate. I mean, technically, how we deliver our boxes to all these countries is not to register a company in all these countries. It's actually, we want to find partners to work with who can do it. So at even one point, we were in conversation with people in Myanmar who wanted to assemble for the Pacific Islands, etc. And but we're so far away, so it was difficult to do. So I'm a strong believer in these different types of collaborations. I think for us, our challenge as off-grid boxes, we've at least our international staff, there's only been 4 of us since we've begun, actually. And so we're actually quite a tiny company, even though we've deployed all these boxes. But then we have a really large Rwandan team because they're doing all of our lab things. So the short answer is not yet, but I hope to.
Thank you. So the last remark is actually not a question a comment.
But I see it. I should actually save it.
Yes, yeah, and the audience can see it too. So I'll leave it at that because that's an email address. Now we are coming up to the hour, 5 minutes left. You have any last parting thought?
Oh, I should have prepared this.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have prepared you for that.
No, I think if anything, it's just I wanted to thank everyone for coming and also having so many questions. I think Winking was mentioning like this is really exciting because we have, even though it might be smaller, we have people who are really interested in this climate aspect. And so I think for me, this is the future. These water crises that they're cropping up all over the world, and the only way to address that is one, through collaboration, but two is by working on these problems, combining it with energy, developing technologies that can go wherever is possible. And one of the other reasons I was excited about speaking here was that off-grid box needs help. So if you know water experts, if you know project managers who've worked here, if you want to advise us, we're still in learning stage. I think actually we're lifelong learners as well. So I myself have not taken enough advantage of the MIT Alumni Network, and I hope to plug in. So I really actually want to thank Winking for making this possible, and even thinking that my talk could be exciting for some people. So thank you.
Thank you, Jodie. Your talk actually is very exciting, and I received a lot of inquiry even before your talk, asking about what you're doing and how they can help, and talking about their area of expertise. So I hope this create a good networking opportunities for all of us, MIT alumni or the public, because this webinar is for the public. And thank you so much for providing your email address too. I hope you make great connections from that. And,
yes, for certain.
And again, thank you for your wonderful talk, and thank you for everybody for participating and for your enthusiasm. And we hope that you have enjoyed this session and that you will attend our future sessions and participate, and we can all work together and help one another. That's the whole point. The recording of this webinar will be uploaded to the website or YouTube channel of the MIT Alumni Association, and also our website, the MIT Chinese Alumni Group. And for the MIT community, please join our group, the MIT Chinese Alumni Group. You don't have to be Chinese to join us. And for the public, please link in with me and message me to be added to our email invite list. And of course, to everyone, your suggestions, your comments, feedback are welcome. We are very excited to have you here. On behalf of Jodie Wu, I'm so thankful, and the MIT Chinese Alumni Group, we hope to see you again. And until then, Happy Chinese New Year and goodbye.